Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Packer Universe podcast. We're a Green Bay Packers fan podcast that brings you topical and relevant Packers news, along with our most humble, subjective opinions. We are recording this episode number 284 on a Thursday, August 29th. We have a very special interview today. It is Wendell Ferreira of A to Z Sports, and he's got a number of other things. But Ren and I sit down to talk to him today. We just finished a couple days ago our reaction to the 53-man cutdown. So go check that out if you haven't. But this interview with Wendell that you're about to hear comes a week out from the season opener for the Packers against the Eagles down in Brazil. And we had the very special chance to chat with Wendell about all of that. So, Ren, without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, everyone. We have a very special guest today on the Packer Universe podcast. We are joined by Wendell Ferreira, a longtime sports writer residing in Brazil. He contributes to several outlets, including A to Z Sports, Zone Coverage, Cheesehead TV, sometimes others. But based on your X page and timeline, Wendell, you predominantly are a Packers news coverage guy. Is that right?
Yeah. Now it'll be my first season covering the NFL on a full-time basis. I write more about the Packers, and also I am a Packers fan. But I also write about the NFL and also an AFC East division editor at A to Z Sports now.
Awesome.
Excellent. Congrats.
Thanks, man.
Hey, before we get into a lot of things, Brazil, obviously it's been a pretty busy week, Wendell, and I know you've put in a lot of work, which everybody should go out and find when they go find you at Wendell FP on X, doing all things Packers 53-man roster this week. But this year, it has been kind of a crazy one. It's usually pretty quiet around the 53. But this year we end up with a QB trade, a kicker, waiver claim, and multiple Packers ending up on other rosters. After a few days of kind of digesting this stuff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was a surprising week. In fact, it kind of reminds me of 2013 when the Packers released every backup QB. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah.
Yep.
They released Vince Young and Graham Harrell, BJ Coleman, and they ended up signing Seneca Wallace and Scott Tozia. Because it's really rare to see the Packers moving on from guys after training camp. But that happened with quarterback and kicker, so absolutely unusual. I'm not a big fan of Malik Willis. I think he's a limited passer. It's not exactly what the Packers look for in a quarterback, even though he's an athletic player, which obviously was a big part of the move for the Packers. But it surprised me. Uh, to start the season, I think the Packers will elevate Sean Clifford to the active roster for game day for the first couple of weeks. So I think it'll kind of adjust while they adjust the Malik Willis situation moving forward. I think they see Willis as a potential future backup. He's under contract through 2025, so that certainly makes sense for the Packers in that regard.
Certainly piggybacking off that, obviously there's still four quarterbacks in Cleveland, but guys like Brett Rippon were released. Taylor Heineke was just traded for a 6th-round pick. Was there a guy, Bailey Zappi was out there, after went on waivers, you would have rather seen when we speak to some of those names?
Yeah, I think Desmond Ritter would be a decent backup, not great option, but a decent backup. And the Browns actually released Tyler Huntley
They
earlier
did.
today.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think Huntley, I don't think he's a great option, but probably it would be better to get him for free than trading a seventh for Willis. Even though a seventh might be nothing, the Packers have gotten some decent players in the seventh round. So yeah, I think the draft capital there makes a difference. But at the same time, Willis has a higher ceiling than those guys. So yeah, it makes sense to grab him in that regard, in that sense. I wouldn't have made this bet because I think Willis is limited, is a limited passer, as I mentioned. For the Titans, he had I think, 49 passer rating. So yeah, that's tough to get him. If the Packers need him to play early, especially in the season, that'll be tough. as the old coach said, if we lose Peyton, we're the Packers will be if they lose Jordan. But at the same time, if you can have a capable backup to play 1 or 2 games, it certainly can help in the season standings after all.
Exactly. How about any of the other guys ending up on other rosters? Anything there that you were like, man, I wish they would have kept Christian Welch, or too bad Grant DuBose is down in Miami, where he'll probably even be the third or fourth. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, those 2 guys you mentioned are. I thought the Packers would keep him, especially Welch. But my regret, my main regret is Anthony Johnson, because that's the move I can't understand. Because the Packers decided to keep Zane Anderson instead of him. Zane Anderson is exclusively a special teamer, and Anthony Johnson is a guy who has really defensive potential to be a really good or impactful defensive player. So that surprised me a lot, and the Giants ended up claiming him on waivers. It's unfortunate that happened. I think the Packers maybe miscalculated that, thinking that he would clear waivers, and he didn't. But I don't understand the concept of keeping so many players for special teams only, like the Packers do, because their special teams are not good. So they're keeping those players. They're paying Rich Bisaccia a lot of money. He's the highest paid special teams coordinator in the NFL, and yet the results are not there. So I can understand that, and you're losing a potential defensive contributor. So it's hard to understand that. I wish the Packers could have kept Welch. DuBose, it's a difficult situation because the Packers have the wide receiver depth is wild. There are 6 wide receivers. You can make a case for all of them. Malik Heath has had a great preseason, so you understand why they kept Heath and not DuBose. But with Anthony Johnson, I simply cannot understand why they did that.
Yeah, this guy right here too. He was pretty upset about it, myself
Understood.
included. I mean, he had a heck of a preseason. I think he'd been great in Jeff's system. We'll maybe get to Jeff later, but yeah, certainly all great points on that stuff. But yeah, too bad for AJJ.
Wendell, what did you think about the kicker situation and how that transpired? And then we picked up Braden Narvison from the Titans. What are your thoughts about the kicker situation right now?
Yeah, I think the Packers initially made the right decision releasing or allowing Mason Crosby to go, because I never saw Crosby as an elite kicker. He was a good kicker, not great. So I think in terms of process, of roster building process, you can't base yourself on what happened with Crosby throughout his career to find a new kicker, because he was a 6th round pick originally, and he had kind of 4 or 5 mediocre seasons at best, and then he had some important kicks throughout his career, but he's never made to the Pro Bowl. He's never made to an All-Pro team. So I like him as a kicker. He had some important moments for the Packers, but I completely understood the decision to move on from him. The decision to draft Andrews Carson was where things started to go wrong, because as a philosophy, roster building philosophy, I don't like the idea of drafting kickers, because first of all, it's impossible to scout them. NFL teams don't know how to scout kickers. I don't know why is that. I don't know what the problem, but we have seen multiple examples of highly drafted kickers not working out. So the chances of you getting a good kicker drafting one in the 3rd, 4th, or 6th round like the Packers did, or with an undrafted guy, is the same. So I would just get a guy from the UFL or from the undrafted free agents, or like the Packers did now with the guy from the Titans, Narvison. So the decision to draft a kicker like Carlson, especially considering he was not a highly regarded prospect, he was expected to be an undrafted player. So the Packers drafted him in the 6th round because of his relationship with Bisaccia, going again with Bisaccia.
Mm-hmm.
That process, I think, it's where things started to go wrong. Now the Packers are trying to find alternatives for that. Last year, the Packers might have lost the 49ers because of that decision. And last year, I thought the Packers should have signed a veteran player. There were some options. For example, the Packers could have kept Carson at 53 and signed a veteran to the practice squad, elevated him for game day to play in the playoffs. Because at that point, against the 49ers, Carlson had missed at least a kick per game in like 6 consecutive games. So you knew his situation was tough. And now it's a different circumstances because Carlson, he doesn't have the confidence anymore from Brian Gutekunst, from the front office. So you just are scrambling to find another option. I think it's a decent bet. It's a rookie. He had a strong preseason, Arbison. So you don't know. It's hard to be completely sure that it'll work out as the Packers want to. But I think in terms of process, it's better to claim a rookie off waivers without spending anything than spending a 6th round pick on a guy. It's not about the pick. If you trade, for example, a 6th round pick for an established veteran or for a guy that had a strong preseason, it's better than drafting a kicker in the 6th round. The process of drafting a kicker, if you have no idea that he's going to work out, I think that's the problem.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And your whole thing with the postseason last year, this guy Tay, that was exactly
Yeah.
what he wanted to have happen. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but you're right. There are too many rich fingerprints on this roster, and some certainly think, and I sounds like you think that. I mean, he's under the microscope this year, and if things don't improve, I would say dramatically, we may see a different special teams guy come 2025.
Yeah, I think the Packers maybe still trust him. He was promoted to assistant head coach last year, but I don't trust him to be honest. I think the Packers hired him mostly because he had that good experience as an interim head coach, and not because he was a good special teams coordinator. And the Packers don't need an interim head coach now; they need a special teams coordinator.
Hmm.
The Packers made a mistake in 2019 when LaFleur originally was hired as head coach because Darren Reese was available. He was going out of the Dolphins. The Packers brought him in for a visit for a meeting and decided not to pay him. So he went to the Saints. The Saints have had one of the best special teams units since, and the Packers went cheap with those guys that maybe nobody knew at the time, Sean Menang, and then Modrate,
Hmm.
Oof, brutal
and
names.
it cost them because they initially didn't want to pay the Jeremy Reese, and they ended up paying now Rich Bisaccia, who's probably not as good as Reese is for the Saints. So yeah, sometimes you make a mistake and then it starts to snowball from there.
Yeah, great insight on the special teams and the kicker stuff there, Wendell. I agree with everything you said, except for maybe the Mason Crosby stuff. I think we would have gotten more consistency if he would have been on the team. He might have made some of those extra points and 3-pointers that we needed to win some games last year. That's where I stand at least. But now that's all water under the bridge. You're exactly right. Like, let's go cheap. We're on the same playing field now as when we had Carlson and crew versus what we have now with Narvison. So let's just start over, and that's fine.
Exactly. Yeah. Overall, I agree with you with the Crosby stuff. I think he would have been more consistent than Carlson, but at the same time, his leg is kind of going down.
It's a little
Uh,
weak.
a point for that is that he played, I think, 5 games for the Giants last season. It wasn't great too. So I think, yeah, he was a fine kicker throughout his career. I think the Packers made the right decision keeping him around. But now he's, I think, 39 years old. So yeah, it was time. I think it was time to move on.
Right on. Well, let's move on to some fun things now. One of the biggest reasons why we asked you to come on was to talk about the Brazil game. You are going to attend the game in Sao Paulo, which is only like 8 days away right now. But kind of walk us through like what the next week looks like for you leading up to the game, prior to it, and then when it finally gets here, like what's your plan? What are you going to be doing?
Yeah, it'll be a crazy week, certainly. My city, the city where I live in, went on a huge flooding, I think 3 months ago. So the airport is closed, kind of closed.
Wow.
So I'll have to travel by car to another city here close to my city. Then I'll take the flight to Sao Paulo on Wednesday, 2 days ahead of the game. It'll be an amazing experience, man. More than the game itself, I think it's the experience to know the guys that I've been known just on Twitter, for example, the Aaron Neglers of the world. Uh,
Mhm.
be around Packers fans. There will be a fun event on the eve of the game on Thursday night for Packers fans to watch the NFL kickoff, the Chiefs game. So I couldn't be more excited about that. Obviously, the experience to cover an NFL game will be huge for me because I've never been to the United States, so I've never watched an NFL game in the stadium. It'll be a unique, really unique experience for me. So yeah, I couldn't be more excited about that. When the NFL decided to play a game here in Brazil, I never thought the Packers would be the team because they had that bad experience going to London 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and logistically it would be difficult to project that. The NFL has that marketing rights thing, and the Dolphins and the Patriots have the Brazilian rights. So I initially the expectation was that the Dolphins would play here. But as the NFC has the extra game, the NFC teams have the extra game this year. They ended up putting the Eagles as the home team, so it makes sense then to put the Packers here. When they announced the Packers, obviously I was hugely excited about that prospect of going to a Packers game. My idea would be to go to the game anyway. If it would be, for example, Eagles and Browns, who obviously wouldn't be so nice, but having the Packers here, it's everything that I could hope for.
We're super excited for you to actually have that experience, and hopefully you get to the States sooner than later to have it here as well. That'd be amazing. Lambeau's a special place that Tay and I get to go to, all the time. He was there this past Saturday, so it's kind of just something, we experience as kind of our normal every day. But piggybacking off that point, it's crazy. The Packers are the number one team in Brazil. It's not by ton, like 50% of the people, and you mentioned the Dolphins and the Patriots. I find it, the fact that they do not have a partnership in Brazil and the Miami has the rights, I find it odd. I don't know what's keeping from Green Bay jumping into this market, knowing that there are so many fans there. It seems like a great fit. Do you know anything? Can you speak any more to that?
Yeah, I talked to some people about it. The Packers' decision not to be here is more because that's not their priority. They don't have the international rights for any country,
Right?
not even Canada. That would absolutely make sense because it's close to Wisconsin and everything.
Sure.
I think their priority is to be more of a local team in Wisconsin and the United States. That's their marketing priority, I should say, at least under Mark Murphy. Let's see if it changes under Ed Policy. Maybe it will. I don't know, but that's not their marketing priority at this point. As far as the Dolphins and the Patriots, the Patriots also have a huge fan base here in Brazil because obviously the NFL has grown in Brazil over the last 10, 15 years, and the
Sure.
Patriots being a dynasty helped their popularity here. And the Dolphins, I think, mostly because there are a lot of Brazilians in Florida, living in
Yep.
Florida. The Dolphins had a Brazilian player on the international pathway program a couple of years ago,
Nope.
Durval Queiroz. So I think that those things helped the Dolphins to be here. But as far as the Packers, yeah, I don't think the international growth is a priority for them as a franchise.
Which
Hmm.
seems, with the worldwide following, it just seems like they're missing so many opportunities. Not just in Brazil, you mentioned Canada, up here in Wisconsin, a lot of sausage and beer, Germany, places like that. There's a lot of places that make a lot of sense for the Green Bay Packers to be, and why miss out on those opportunities from a marketing standpoint as the smallest team in the NFL? That just seems odd to me. But moving on to more things, Brazil. We know you haven't been here yet to Wisconsin, but when you do, there's going to be brats. There's going to be cheese curds. They're going to be old fashions in your future, right? And if you have enough time, we're going to encourage you to take a trip to Door County or visit one of our great state parks, and obviously visit the Packers Hall of Fame. Must. But from your perspective, we're going down there. What food and drink are part of the Brazilian experience, and what places and activities would you recommend in and around Sao Paulo?
Yeah, I don't know São Paulo really well because I've been there I think just twice, but it's a huge city. It's like a Brazilian version of New York. So basically, anything you want to do, you will be able to do in São Paulo. The pizza, São Paulo pizza is a huge thing. Everyone talks about it, and there's a I think for sports fans in general, there's a soccer museum that's really beautiful in São Paulo. So I think that from a sports fan perspective, that would be huge. Throughout the week, the NFL will be doing some activities here too in Villa Lobos Park. That's a huge park in São Paulo too. So there will be sports fans, watching fairs and events for football fans, American football fans, and flag football events too. The NFL. I was right before jumping in with you guys. I was in a presser from Peter O'Reilly, who's the NFL executive vice president for league events outside of the United States, and he was talking about how the NFL is engaged in helping grow the flag football game because it helps them get future football fans, not only in the United States but abroad too. So the flag football schedule will be huge here in Brazil. They will incentivize people coming to play flag football and local fans too. So I think that'll be a nice experience for American fans coming to Brazil.
Hey, speaking of the city, the NFL selected Corinthians Arena, and it's mostly hosting the football team Corinthians, right? But they also call it, well, technically the Neo Kumika Arena because of the naming rights. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess, like, what do people call it? Like, what's its street name? Do you call it Corinthians Arena or do you call it something else?
Yeah, we call it Arena Corinthians, which is in Portuguese Corinthians Arena. But Neoquímica Arena is because here in Brazil we don't have the culture of calling naming rights names, right? We call
Okay.
just we call the name of the team or the name of the historical name of the stadium. That's mostly because we call it Arena Corinthians because at first when this is a recently built stadium. It was built for the 2014 FIFA World Cup. So when they built the stadium at first, it didn't have a naming right. So it was Arena Corinthians, just Arena Corinthians. Then I think 2 or 3 years later, they sold the naming rights for Neoquímica, and then it started being officially called Neoquímica Arena.
Okay. Well, when it's not in World Cup mode, the stadium says it can fill around 47,000 people. Um, do you expect that this is going to be a sold out event? I'm assuming it will, but do you expect that? And then, um, what do you think the vibe will be like in that stadium?
Yeah, it has been sold out already.
Okay.
Uh, it's I think in a few hours, all tickets have been sold because Brazilian fans were eager to get tickets. It was a huge thing when the NFL announced the tickets, the selling process. Basically, uh, everything was in front of the computer to get to trying to get the tickets, and then uh, some tickets that have been bought, but the payment process went wrong. They tried to sell it again, and in a couple of minutes it was sold again. So Brazilian fans are really excited about that. It's obviously a huge opportunity for Brazilian fans because going from Brazil to the United States is it's expensive and it's
Mm-hmm.
not easy. So I think yeah, Brazilian fans are totally excited about that, and I think it'll be like a home game for the Packers because the Packers fan base here is huge, man. The Packers and the Patriots have the biggest fan bases here in Brazil, and the Eagles are not close to as big as the Packers are here. So there will be neutral fans because any NFL fan here in Brazil wants to be there. But but yeah, I think most neutral fans will be supporting the Packers, and there will be more Packers fans than Eagles fans. So the atmosphere will be wild. One thing that might be crazy for American fans is that I don't think the Brazilian fans have that perception that, well, when my team is on defense, I won't. I won't. When my team is on offense, I won't scream. Yeah, they will scream the entire game, and yeah,
So
that
Matt
might be a little
LaFleur
bit.
doing this is not going to work. It's not going to
Yeah,
work. Matt will do
I
that
don't know if it's
sometimes.
gonna work.
Okay.
Maybe. Let's see.
Do you have a jersey that you're going to be wearing?
I'll be working. I'll be on the press media room, so I won't be allowed to wear any Packers stuff.
Dress
But
code.
on Thursday night, I'll probably wear my Aaron Rodgers jersey.
Perfect.
Nice. Um, well, I guess about the game, about the matchup, Wendell, we got kind of one last bigger question for you. We know you're excited about Jeff Halfley and the new defense, which is no longer like a read and react. It's more like a pounce and attack sort of defense. How do you see the game going? And then I guess the season overall, especially highlighting that defensive change.
Yeah, I think it'll be a big game for us to understand what the Jeff Hafley defense will be exactly. Because if you look what he was doing at Boston College, it was extremely uh, single high heavy. And if you look at what he did or what he participated while in San Francisco, it was also a cover three heavy defense. But now the NFL in general has evolved from that, including Robert Saleh, who was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers at that time. So I think he'll be probably forced to play more, at least quarters or too high in general. So, but this Eagles game specifically is a tough challenge for that because we know how well they run the ball. They have now Saquon Barkley. The offensive line is a good run blocking unit. Jalen Hurts obviously is a quarterback. Is also he also likes to run, but at the same time he's a good deep thrower too. So that's a challenge and how they have to balance that. The Packers were extremely vanilla during the preseason, so I have no idea if that will apply to regular season games. But during the preseason, it was mostly cover 3-2. It was mostly vanilla stuff, no blitz, no quarters, no uh, unusual stuff. So yeah, I think we have to wait and see. But I couldn't be more excited to watch that. Watch it closely. I'm pretty excited to watch how they will shift the safeties around because Xavier McKinney will probably call what they have to do. Maybe Javon Bullard will start. Maybe Javon Bullard may eventually play in the slot with Evan Williams going deep. I expect Xavier McKinney to play closer to the box, maybe as a strong safety. Uh, what Ken Chancellor were for the Seahawks was for the Seahawks back in the day. But yeah, I think how they will use safeties and that coverage disguises that is fun because that Seahawks defense and the root and defense coming from that, they're pretty straightforward. You know, it's cover one, it's cover three, it's single high, and that's a line and play. But that's not the NFL right now. You know, you see defenses like the Ravens last year with McDonald and those crazy Brendan Staley defenses with the Rams. They're disguising a lot post snap, yeah. And I think the Packers need to do a little bit of that to be successful because if you're only going to do one thing or one set of things, specific things for specific situations, opposing offenses will kill you, and it's hard to work around that.
Yeah, I mean, you also have to be happy with the defensive line play here in training camp and the preseason. Obviously, getting Kenny back under contract, those guys would look great as well. I'm sure that probably excites you as well with that now 4-3 D look.
Yeah, I think that the 4-3 base defense and this scheme in general, it's a perfect fit for what the Packers have in terms of personnel. I think Devontae Wyatt is a perfect fit for that system. Lucas Van Ness might be better too for that. I'm slightly concerned about the off-ball linebackers. I don't think Quay Walker is exactly what the Packers need. I expect them to take a middle linebacker in the draft because of that, and they have mostly will linebackers. Adrian Cooper's that. I think Isaiah McDuffie is not exactly a middle linebacker either. So I'm slightly concerned about that. But the defensive line, defensive tackles, and defensive ends, I think the defense is perfect for them, and they are perfect for the defense. I expect huge things from Rashan Gary, for example. I think Gary has to play more snaps. Obviously, last year he was coming back from that knee injury, so I understand why he played slightly less. But if you look, when the Packers had Za'Darius and Preston Smith in 2019, they played around 85% of the snaps. And last year, Preston and Rashawn Gary played, I think, like 65% of the snaps. So that's a huge difference. And even though the Packers have a solid depth at edge, it's really important to have your best guys on the field, especially on third down and important situations. So I hope Jeff Hafley can work around that better. Now Jason Rebrovich will be working with the entire defensive line. So let's see how it shakes out. But yeah, I'm excited about that too.
Awesome. Well, before we let you go, any chance NFL 2025 draft or a game in 25 here in Wisconsin? What are your thoughts on that, Wendell?
Yeah, man. My long-term plans are trying to maybe move to the United States, but I'm not sure exactly about that, when it'll happen, and if it'll happen at all. But yeah, my plan is to be in the United States soon, or maybe as a tourist, or I don't know. Being in Green Bay and at Lambeau Field is obviously a dream for me because, as you said to your point, it's a special place and a special atmosphere. Uh, I can dream of myself being there and smelling the grass of Lambeau Field. Yeah, it might be obviously a special feeling for for any Packers fan in the world. It's crazy because you guys have all the reason of the world to support the Packers, to be Packers fans, right? And people from other countries, they start supporting the Packers for a variety of reasons that are not obvious, right? So the experience to be around Green Bay and to feel that connection with the franchise, it might be glorious for any fan.
We call it a birthright in Wisconsin. It's what we do. My 30th birthday, Tay and I were actually at Lambeau, had the whole field and stadium to ourselves, playing catch, doing Lambeau leaps. It was an amazing experience for a 30th birthday gift. So we've had a lot of great memories in Lambeau.
And it's nice because here in Brazil we have soccer clubs that apply to that role too. But here in my state, for example, there are two big soccer clubs, so you can basically choose one of them. But in Wisconsin, it's different because it's the Packers, and everyone supports the Packers. So yeah, that's crazy, man.
It's great.
Love it, love it. Quickly, Wendell, what do you think the Packers will win, or did the Eagles overtake them?
I think the Packers have a really good chance of winning because the Eagles finished last season on a negative note, right? With especially the defense. They are trying on their defense now with Vic Fangio, but I think the Packers have more depth. I think they have the better quarterback. I think Love at this point is better than Hurts. The Eagles are a dangerous team, right? They have a strong offensive line. They have two excellent wide receivers. But I'm really bullish on this Packers team. I think they can absolutely compete for the NFC North title this year again with the Lions. Obviously, I respect the Lions. I think the Lions are a really solid team, but I expect the Packers to win this game. I think that the Eagles are not as good as the Cowboys, for example. I think the Cowboys are the best team in the NFC East. So yeah, I expect the Packers to have a strong game. I absolutely do not expect a regression for Jordan Love this season. I expect a step forward for him. So yeah, I think he'll have a great game. I expect a lot of great things from Zach Tom and Rashid Walker. Uh, Truly excited about those guys this season. I think they can take huge steps forward. And next season we might be talking about paying them huge money because they'll be eligible for extensions. And yeah,
Yep.
I think those guys can have huge seasons for the Packers.
I know Zach, you're a big Zach Tom guy. So I mean,
Yeah.
what's not to like? But I know he's one of your faves
Uh,
on the
I
roster.
went on another podcast a couple of weeks ago, and they asked me what player was most excited about to watch here in Brazil, and I mentioned Zach Tom because watching from the TV, it's hard sometimes to fully appreciate offensive line play. So having the experience to watch a player like Zerton play in live, I think it'll be amazing.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap it up here, Wendell. I just want to say you have great insight on the Packers. You're very well informed. It's quite an accomplishment doing that, from a half a world away. But everyone out there should go follow Wendell. Put this up on the screen. This is your X handle, Wendell with two L's, FP. But again, Wendell, we really, really appreciate this. Again, follow him on X. He's on other social platforms too, but most importantly, follow his insightful articles on A to Z Sports.com. There's a Green Bay Packers news page. Go there. Wendell's all over it. He really knows his stuff. So go follow him. And again, we really appreciate you joining us here on the Packer Universe podcast.
We're really grateful, Wendell. Sorry to interrupt you there, but truly grateful. So thanks for taking the time. It was great to have you. We look forward to talking down the road, hopefully. And anything you want to let us know that you're doing before we let you go?
Really appreciate you guys. It's an amazing experience to talk with people from Wisconsin because, as I always mention, at first when I started writing about the Packers, I was a little worried that people from the United States would say, "Hey, go cover soccer, go talk about soccer," but people from Wisconsin have been totally different than I expected and I anticipated because they are friendly. They want to enjoy a good conversation about the Packers, and I couldn't be more happy with the reception from you guys. So having that talk with you guys from Wisconsin and how appreciative you are if another person wants to come and talk about the Packers, yeah, that's really awesome. And I really appreciate anytime you want me here, I'll be.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Wendell.
man.
Go Pack, go.
Have so much fun next Friday.
Yeah, it'll be awesome, man. I can't wait for that. Thank you.
Once again, thank you, Wendell, for joining us. That was awesome. I personally truly love his insight, and we said it before, but go follow him on Twitter. I'm sorry, X, and wherever else you can, and check out his articles. He truly is a competent reporter on the Packers, even though he's in Brazil. I loved it. Ren, thanks for joining me and interviewing him today.
Yeah, Tay, I mean, that was a blast. Wendell is such a great guy, and he was obviously so nice to accommodate us in our request to have him on. And you mentioned it. I mean, Wendell he has amazing insight into the game in general, as good as any beat writer out there you'd ever speak to or anybody covering the Packers. Again, it was our pleasure to have him. And I think everybody's going to just love the show. But until episode 285 on the pup list.